Hello and welcome everyone back to another episode of the Publisher Lab. I'm Tyler Bishop and joined alongside me, Whitney Wright. Whitney, welcome back, or I guess welcome.
Yeah, welcome back. You
Yeah.
were in Ireland, right?
Yeah, I was in Dublin, which is a lot smaller actually than I guess maybe I had assumed. But if you would have asked me before the trip, like, is Dublin the same size as San Diego, which is where we're at? I would have said, oh yeah, it's pretty close.
Yeah.
But it's a lot smaller.
It's a really small. I find that a lot of the cities in the UK and like Ireland and stuff that you think that they're going to be bigger because they are the bigger cities in those areas, but they just are smaller.
Yeah.
I don't know. But they're quaint and I like them like that.
Yeah, no, me too. There's a lot of things I really liked about it. It was not necessarily what I expected, but yeah, it was a really good trip. And yeah, happy to be back. I was telling you guys before, and if I say anything crazier than normal, it's because I'm only a couple hours of sleep and still adjusting to the jet lag. As I've gotten older, it's gotten harder.
Yes, definitely.
Some of our audience may relate.
Oh my gosh, last time we went to London for affiliate gathering last year, it took me like a week to change time zones. So yeah, I sympathize with that. But we got some good topics today. We are diverting a little bit from ChatGPT, although we are talking about AI, but we'll jump right in.
So if you're tired of hearing about it, don't worry. We have different topics, but also if you love hearing about it, we've got a little bit something for everybody.
So first topic, we got an article from eMarketer. It's about Gen Z and how much they love Apple and how this should help the tech giant expand their advertising business. So they have stats. 34% of all iPhone owners are Gen Z, which compared to only 10% using Samsung. And Apple ranks among Gen Z's top 20 favorite brands of any brands just in general. And even though the iPhones are 3 times the price of the average Android, Apple increased its overall market share of phone purchases and usage from 35 to 50% last year. And part of that is the exclusivity of it. You know, they have the blue colors for iPhone to iPhone, and then they make the green ones for the messages. And
that's a big thing. Out. Like my wife will bully people over that.
I know. I mean, I have too.
Specifically.
Yeah, and so also for every 100 iPhones shipped, 26 iPads, 17 Apple Watches, and 35 pairs of AirPods are sold. So they are just like this major conglomerate, and the popularity with Gen Z will give the company a better understanding of the up-and-coming market and the demographic that many advertisers are keen to reach. And next year, Apple global ad revenue is expected to break $10 billion for the first time.
Yeah.
So
I remember it was $0.
Yeah, exactly. So we got Gen Z coming up. They're a huge market to go after. Advertisers are interested in this. Apple has tons of data that they've been just harboring, and they're coming up in the ad industry.
Yeah, I mean, Amazon, it reminds me a little bit of Amazon a few years ago whenever people were like, they're irrelevant in the advertising space. And now it's like they've got a business that every other party not named Google or Facebook would have gladly hopped into.
Yeah.
And, you know, Apple's brand is really, really strong. And I think this is one of the things that maybe publishers should be paying attention to.
Yeah.
Hopefully you are. And it's because Apple, because of their proximity to the end customer. So I think everybody always thinks of the chain of sort of like the publishing industry goes advertisers, the money then flows to the publisher, and then eventually, you know, that money is exchanged for free content to the end user, the person that's actually viewing the content. Now, because of cookies and third-party, tracking and stuff like that going away, that's put it in a position to where Google actually has gotten less power in this relationship because they're less valuable, essentially, because Google, because of, all the users that use their products, they could then target, advertising really well to them. But with the third-party cookies going away, now, like the customer actually is to target them successfully, the device in their hand is actually like the tip of the spear now. Mm-hmm. Or you could say their internet connection with an ISP, or, Amazon seems to have acquired a lot of Wi-Fi hardware companies recently as well. And that's why. It's because that proximity to the customer then allows you then to dictate more rules of how something operates. So Apple is in a really unique spot here. And, I find it hard to believe that, this is not going to continue. I think sort of the bullying you were talking about with the green and the blue messages, I'm sure that there's people that are listening right now that know exactly what we're talking about. And yeah, I kind of see that having a ripple effect that is maybe longer lasting rather than just some kind of trend that's going to die. I don't know. What do you think?
I agree. I mean, we're both millennials, but I'm kind of an end millennial. I'm 91. So Gen Z, I think, is like.
You made it sound like you were 91 years old.
Oh, no, I'm not 91 years old.
You sound great for 91,
Yeah,
by the way.
I know. No, 1991. I think Gen Z starts at like 97 or 98. And so I'm kind of the end. So I kind of can easily latch on to Gen Z trends. And I'm an iPhone user. I'm a Mac user ever since
Same.
I got my first computer going into college. Got my first iPod with my, free iPod with the MacBook. That's what they used to do.
I had to explain what an iPod was to one of my wife's students the other day. And it was like, I knew that it was, they didn't get it at all.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I mean, MP3s, and they're all just like obsolete at this point.
They're like, what did you use for the phone then? I was like, well, the phone was a separate thing.
Right. Phone didn't have
the internet, really.
Yeah.
I mean, it did, but like,
I know.
it's different.
Yeah, and so I am a big Apple user. I have tried to bully my mom into getting an iPhone so we can FaceTime. So I completely understand where Gen Z is coming from, and I think that Apple has this to their advantage. But I think where publishers can come in is that you need to be aware of Gen Z as well. And the trends that are coming in, and like how you can cater to Gen Z, because Gen Z is interested in obviously Apple. There's the 20 brands that they're interested in. I know they're very interested in kind of like cultural or like I guess what am I trying to say? I don't know, like the environment and just kind of more like stuff like that. And so I think if you have topics and categories that you can kind of cater to Gen Z, you're going to pull in those advertisers that are looking to advertise to this demographic.
Yeah, and I think you can learn a lot too by focusing on, the audience and the type of content that they're looking for. So like you might have a site that has a particular topic and you make content the way that people want content today for it. But if you think about it, it's like I have a friend, he was telling me that he was trying to hire a TikTok specialist. And I was like, oh, you're hiring people? Because he was just a single owner operator of a business not too long ago. And he's like, yeah, it's kind of crazy. I just started putting up these like tips that my daughter said that I should put on TikTok, and it kind of blew up. And he's like, it's where I've been getting like twice as much business, but like the half that I was getting before is now I'm getting like double that from TikTok. And he's like, I just need somebody that can consistently put this stuff out for me. And it was one of those things to where I don't think he realized that like his content fit an audience. He just wasn't making it yet.
Right.
And I would look at all the content on your site that way. And I would also think about like every time Apple releases a new feature in Safari or their operating system, there's potential there that you could take advantage of it. Like Apple recently had the thing where your camera can actually copy paste text from images and stuff. That's either something that you could use to create new content that maybe opens up some new doors, or maybe it's something that allows you then to like, I can put images in my content now that they could actually copy and paste on their mobile device. Like, is there applications for something like that in what you do? And I think it's that type of creativity that like consistently the top publishers always seem to tap into, or that's what they build their business on.
Yeah. What do you think about Apple coming up in the advertising business, I guess, against Google? Like, do you think that they are a worthy competitor?
I do. And I've said this for a long time. And I know like I have counterparts and partners that I work with that feel differently about that. And I think it's a topic that inside the industry I think gets discussed a lot, and you kind of get into a couple camps. I'm in the camp of like Apple could and would be good at this, so why wouldn't they?
Right.
And you already see evidence of them. They already index their own sort of sites. If you type into Safari on a mobile device like Whitney Wright, it's going to give you a result. You can press like the enter button and it's going to give you Google search results because Google is by default on Safari. But if you actually click on the very first result, which already shows up underneath, kind of like, like a autocomplete, If you click on that, that's actually not Google that's serving you that result. It's Apple. So that's why they've indexed that. Their search engine is essentially a automated, I'm feeling lucky that they give you a shot at.
Okay.
And so already that's traffic not going through Google, but coming through Apple's search engine. So if Google decides they don't want to pay them $4 to $20 billion, whatever it is they're paying them every year for this, to be the exclusive search engine, like Apple doesn't need that money. Right. So like that's nothing to them realistically in the grand scheme. So if Apple just decided like, hey, we're going to make our search engine the default one on mobile Safari, it's number one mobile browser, number one mobile device, and like more users use mobile than desktop now. So it's like they kind of got them over a barrel.
Yeah, I agree. I think all in all, something to consider is don't underestimate Apple and don't underestimate Gen Z, because they are very powerful at this point. They are up with all of the newest technology, and they know how to use it and use it to their advantage. And I think that it's not something to just kind of write off.
Yeah, I agree. And I think Apple, they did Apple ads a while back, and it was kind of a big flop. And I think people point to that as to why they won't do it again, or why it won't be successful. But I see them going about it a completely different way now, where they're really focused on building sort of like the user technology that advertising could piggyback off of, versus the opposite, which is before they made Apple ads and they tried to run it into all their products. And now they're trying to create products where ads could, potentially thrive.
Yeah. Well, speaking of big tech and big conglomerates, we have 9 years of the Google algorithm. Wow. From Moz. So in 2021, Google reported 4,367 launches. Compare that to 350 to 400 in 2009. And that comes out to, on average, nearly a dozen changes per day. So according to Moz, over the years, page one rankings have had continually more movement. So if we look back to the beginning of their data in 2014, it is things happen way more quickly and more changes happen now than they used to. But it's more nuanced than just that. So some rankings are out of Google's control. So when you consider the World Health Organization coming out, starting with the beginning of the pandemic in March of 2020, so that immediately changed the way that people searched. And that was out of Google's control. And it changed rankings across the board. So, but other ones were more direct algorithm updates. So they say that the number one day for the greatest page ranking differences was a major outage in August 2022. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. And the second place goes to phase 2 of the Penguin 4.0 in October 2016.
Man, I didn't know the 2022 one was that serious. I mean, obviously the impact.
Apparently there was also a fire in a warehouse in Iowa for Google, but they said it was unrelated. I don't know.
Interesting. Well, I do know that a lot of the outages last summer were related to data centers basically just overheating with the heat wave that went through.
Stuff. Yeah. So the Penguin 4.0 in October 2016 removed all previous Penguin penalties. That was a big page ranking changer. And
a day that will live in infamy.
Yeah. Do you remember?
Penguin. I remember
Penguin.
I remember. I do. I remember all of them. But I just it's funny to me because Penguin 1. I think for those that were around for that, some of you, that Penguin 1 was the one that historically SEOs have always kind of thought of as D-Day. But I think it's because that was the first one where everybody just kind of got hit with one, and it was so disruptive.
Yeah.
And I think that was everybody realizing that, Google can shutter your business overnight if they want to.
Yeah, I agree. So I was kind of thinking about the Google algorithm updates, and you've been involved in way more than I have. So I was kind of interested in going over the history of some of them and what you remember about some of them.
Well, it's funny because I did live through them all, and so I think just the sort of grizzled qualities that you get. And I know that there's people that listen to this podcast too that have been through a lot of them. And I think that's actually the lesson to take away from some of what you shared in the beginning, which is it is so much different now than it was then. And I think that a lot of the knowledge that the people that were around back then have accumulated over time still gets shared. And I think that gets picked up by people now that are trying to educate themselves about modern SEO. And they're not compatible. A lot of the things that people used to do or ways that they would try to circumvent, getting dinged by these types of things or making sure they stay on the right side, they don't really apply. They're not all that. There's not a utility in it the way that there was, because everything about search works differently than it did back then. Like, one of the most impactful things that we've seen in terms of affecting publisher traffic isn't actually even the rankings. It's the search page itself. So like, if all of a sudden you still rank number one, but it used to just be like the number of ads on the page like has an impact, but now it's like, is video the top result? Is people also ask like cannibalizing like all results below it?
The ads at the top.
Yeah, like knowledge
posts,
graph gets more sophisticated all the time. It's like, I was trying to look for places near me that when I was in Dublin that like sold warm socks, because I was just like needed warm socks, and like the search result page had 0 like website like lists. It was just multiple carousels and like all kinds of other rich things. But I noticed something almost once a week where it's like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like they've embedded some kind of widget that does this or does that. And there are opportunities in that, but like that was something you never had to worry about. If your traffic goes away, now you actually have to figure out, is it because I'm not ranking? Is it because of an algorithm, or did they just change the search page?
Right.
But yeah, Penguin sticks out to me. Believe it or not, the one that I thought was going to be like the worst actually didn't end up being that bad. And that was the not mobile friendly, which some may remember. It was, or mobile first. It was the original sort of like mobile responsive. And I think that was maybe 2016.
Yeah.
That might have been the Penguin one. They stopped naming them right around that same time.
Okay. They don't name them anymore?
I mean, people name them, and
Yeah.
Google has like the helpful content. I mean, like these things get named by the SEO media sometimes, and sometimes they're not used universally as well. But like Google actually did physically name them, like Penguin and Hummingbird and Panda and stuff.
Panda,
Which, fun fact, Panda was actually named after one of the engineers at Google, Sacha Pandin. Panda? Can't remember. But yeah,
that's funny.
That's how they gave the original Panda update its name.
That's funny. I know, I was looking into this, and there's they name them after like SEO experts and stuff, and people that worked on the rankings and stuff. So it's interesting. But what we can kind of glean from these algorithm updates is that we can learn things, but ultimately we can't predict the future of what's going to happen. And as AI becomes more popular, signals from Google about changes are likely to become increasingly less clear.
Yeah.
It's going to become harder to understand what Google wants, I think. AI is just kind of changing everything. And what we can guarantee, though, is that Google wants content that is valuable for searchers and sites that are fast, secure, and mobile friendly. And they don't want sites that are built purely for SEO. And that'll remain true regardless of what happens.
It sounds like I know everybody wants specifics on like what Google wants, but the truth is like Google wants to make a product that people want to use, because they're worried that eventually the world would move towards an app-based world where people don't use the open web to find information on. Because the search engine is designed to help you basically browse the internet easier. That's what Chrome does as well. It's all designed around like using like the HTTP protocol to find information that people are hosting someplace. And more now than ever before, it's not crazy to think that that version of the internet that we think of as websites is in some sort of jeopardy, or at least in flux right now, and is being disrupted. And I think if you look at Google, they need to make sure that users, and that includes the Gen Z audience we were talking about earlier today, they need to make sure that they continue to use the open web. So they need to make a product that makes it valuable for them to do that. So if I can get my information from TikTok or my phone better than I can going into a browser and searching the internet, then that's what I'll do. And so they need content that's good. So they need their product to be able to deliver that however they can. So if you're a publisher, that really is where you should focus your time, because the search algorithm is not one thing. It's a billion things. And long or short content, lots of links, no backlinks, internal linking, do those things matter? it depends, and the nuance of that it depends is getting finer and finer, which just means like any one of those things that you think is important for SEO probably isn't as important as you making content that Google wants to give its audience somehow.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, SEO, obviously there's a bunch of important aspects to it, but a lot of it is out of your control. And so you have to think about what you can control. What you can't control is the content.
Yep. 100%.
And that's ultimately what it comes down to. So I don't know if we have a big Google algorithm update coming up. I don't know what they're cooking. I'm sure they're focusing mostly on AI.
If I knew, they wouldn't let me tell you. And if I told you, they wouldn't let me know.
I'd let you know, but they'd kill me. So on the topic of AI, we have emerging tech agencies and publishers' eyes are on AI. This is from DigiDay. They did a survey of nearly 200 agency and publisher professionals and found that AI is expected to have a major impact on both buy side and sell side. Over 75% of the respondents said that AI will have the biggest impact, making it the number one emerging tech in both agencies and digital publishing. You have ChatGPT that's already been implemented in search. And so for the buy side, marketers and agencies are finding ways to incorporate ChatGPT into brainstorming sessions and helping with writer's block. And then on the sell side, media executives are encouraging their editorial teams to experiment with ChatGPT and begin thinking about how it can be, use be SEO driven or have the effect on SEO driven content, freelancing. And respondents, just to give an example, respondents believe that the metaverse is the next most likely technology to affect their business, but it was only 9% of respondents. So you have 76 who said AI, and then 9% said metaverse. So AI is the next big thing.
Mark Zuckerberg must have been in there and just
I know.
It's metaverse.
He's like, everyone vote for metaverse. So I mean, AI on both ends of this is the upcoming tech that people are concerned about.
It's a really exciting time. It reminds me of the early days of email, and maybe I said this on a previous podcast, but we're so early on, but our listeners might remember something called Gmail.
Yeah.
I remember whenever Gmail came out, you actually had to get on a waiting list and different things like that.
Oh my gosh, I don't remember that. I had Hotmail for the longest time.
Me too. I still have a Hotmail. It's where all my junk mail goes.
Yeah.
Sorry if you have that email.
Yeah.
But yeah, I almost gave it out, but I was just like, that's a bad idea. But the thing is Google built their business on basically providing a lot of things for free, like Gmail and things like that, and people flocked to it because it was the easiest, the simple. Same thing with search engine. And then the data and the user base that they had collected with these products then allowed them to build this empire that they have today. And this reminds me very similar, where it's, people are flocking to ChatGPT and trying to find different ways to use it and implement it. JP Morgan has banned it inside of their organization.
Interesting.
They said that either people would become more reliant on it or too reliant on it, or they were concerned about a number of different things. China's banned it, and they want their own tech companies to build their own versions, which I'm sure they will.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing there does seem to be an apprehensiveness among major institutions around what and how they apply it to their business. And my guess is it's competitive, right? You can imagine how this would somebody that's making this technology or somebody else that would have access to this data or information could then use that to disrupt them or replace them or something. So I do think that there's a lot that goes into that. And so there's probably a number of evolutions that are going to occur here. But I love the sell side approach and this, because I think it's the right one, which is experiment, encourage your teams, find out what others are doing using this technology. And then the more you use it, the more you realize there's so many cool applications for this, where it's personalizing the content. I think everybody always thought it's you get, something slightly different from me, but what if it's personalized content, meaning you're going to show me how to do something, repair a refrigerator. Well, the content could actually be hyper specific to me if I just told you what refrigerator I'm trying to repair, because that information is already out on the internet. And yeah, you can't write content for every manual out there for every version of refrigerator that there is, but ChatGPT already has that knowledge loaded up, and you could like in real time write or ask the, user to generate sort of like very specific, either images or content that like, spoke to that. And that's in your business. That's the content business publisher. It just looks slightly different, but I don't think we're there necessarily right now, but that is something that if you had evidence that was good for your audience, you could make that and potentially be the big disruptor in that space or, topic category.
Yeah, you could be the next big refrigerator site.
Yeah, I mean, there's some big ones out there, actually. Refrigerator websites are a good business.
Yeah. I think what you can learn from this is even from, buy side and sell side, there's so many applications to using generative AI. Like I said, brainstorming sessions, writer's block. It can come up with like H2s for you. It can make an outline for you so you can write better. And then you can use it for SEO.
You can have it, if you learn enough to be dangerous, you can have it basically be an on-demand developer for you.
Yeah, you were talking about that earlier today. It was helping you with code that you understood but not enough to do it yourself.
Yeah.
So there's just really so many applications of AI, and it totally makes sense that it's, people think it's going to be the disruptor.
It can be a research assistant, you think about, you're writing about financial topics where it's really important to have expertise and, embedded, information that's topical and also like you can reference as being credible. And it's like, you write a paragraph, you could throw it in ChatGPT and say, hey, look, is there any research that supports this information? They could give it to you and say, can you spit out, like any numbers that I could like list in bullets? Can you turn those into a graphic or a pie chart for me? Bam, there you go. Like how much better is that content than a paragraph with no references, no charts, no numbers?
Yeah. I agree. And I know that we've been harping on ChatGPT and generative AI the last couple of episodes, but it really is this kind of new wave of technology. And I think it's important for publishers to realize that, but not be intimidated by it, be excited by it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think we're definitely living in an era where it's like, I remember what life was like before the internet and after. I remember what life was before and after the smartphone. And this is another one of those for sure.
I agree. So those are the topics that we had for the day. We do have an announcement. We have at Ezoic a new kind of what's new product page. It's called thelatest.ezoic.com. And it's a product page to help publishers stay informed about the new features of Ezoic so that they can use the products to their full advantage, and it'll educate potential, Ezoic publishers about the products if they're interested. So visit that website. There's a What's New section. It's organized newest to oldest products. And then there's featured announcements, which is organized by importance.
Yeah, and I think, in the way that the world is moving fast now with AI, like it's obviously a business that we've been in for a while. And so, there's a lot of really cool things that I think that people want to stay up on, especially if they're trying to stay on the cutting edge. So
yeah, I agree. So check that out, thelatest.ezoic.com. And then I think that's it unless you have any other announcements.
I don't. I will announce that hopefully for the next podcast, I will have gotten my sleep patterns back to normal. So if I said anything that was crazy or off the wall, that's just that. But I think, you brought us home today. And I mean, the fact of the matter is that these topics are what's topical, but it's probably not changing anytime soon. So if you're enjoying the content on the podcast or not, either way, let us know and we'll cater to you. How about that?
Yeah. Like we've said before, we have the publisherlab.org. There is a little box at the top. You can put in suggestions. You can put in compliments. You can put in critiques. So let us know what you're thinking of the podcast, any topics that you would like us to cover. And you can watch this on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. And you can follow us on any of the podcast platforms, Apple and Spotify and SoundCloud and Anchor, I think, are the major ones.
HomeDepot.com.
HomeDepot.com.
That'd be a weird one, right? They got in the podcast.
But anyway, that is it for this episode of the Publisher Lab.